At my own birthday dinner, my cousin lifted his glass, smirked, and said, "Hope you like what we bought you, with your money." The table erupted in laughter. I laughed too, then walked away. But that was just the beginning. 10 minutes later, a knock at my door set everything into motion, and this time, they had no idea what was coming. The small restaurant on the corner of a quiet street in Portland hummed with soft jazz and low conversation. Warm light spilled across the wooden tables, casting gentle shadows on smiling faces. Laughter swirled around the room like smoke from a candle just blown out. It was Nathan's 35th birthday, a tradition he had kept for years. He reserved the place, paid for everything, and made sure everyone felt welcomed, cherished. Nathan sat at the head of the long table, his smile easy, his laughter polite. Friends and a few scattered relatives surrounded him, people he'd grown up with, helped, or simply stayed in touch with out of habit more than love. Plates clinked. Wine poured. Someone toasted to old stories that no one quite remembered clearly. Then, Kyle, his younger cousin, always a little too loud, a little too careless, stood up with a raised glass and grinned like a boy who just played a prank. "We got you something nice, with your own account." The table exploded in laughter. Kyle winked at someone across the table. A few people hooted, a few repeated the line like a joke told too many times. Nathan forced a chuckle. His hand tightened on the stem of his glass, but his eyes shifted, just for a second, glancing down at his wallet on the table. 3 days ago, a strange charge had appeared on his credit card. He'd dismissed it. Portland had its quirks. Maybe a mistaken swipe, maybe an app glitch. He hadn't questioned anyone. Why would he? Now, amid the flicker of candles and the glow of familiar faces, something in his chest hollowed out. The warmth of the evening faded at its edges. His smile stayed, but it no longer touched his eyes. He looked at Kyle. Not angry. Not yet. Just searching. The laughter still echoed, but it rang hollow now, like wind passing through an empty room. Nathan sat quietly, swirling the last of his wine, watching the way people leaned into one another, shared inside jokes, touched shoulders in passing. The warmth once felt like love. Tonight it felt rehearsed. He leaned toward Ryan, his younger brother, his closest confidant, or so he believed. "Was that true?" Nathan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ryan didn't look ashamed. He just gave a casual shrug and replied, "You always say you'd do anything for family. So we just let you." Just like that. A truth tossed into the air like it was weightless. But it landed with a thud in Nathan's chest. He looked around. His mother was refilling her water, smiling at something an uncle had said. His father adjusted his watch, unreadable as always. 2 aunts leaned into each other, their earrings catching the light. Not one of them flinched. No one said a word. They all knew. Nathan's heart didn't race, it slowed. It moved with the quiet drag of disbelief turning into something worse. Understanding. He dropped his gaze to his lap, where his fingers carefully unlocked his phone beneath the tablecloth. He scrolled to a family group chat, one he'd muted months ago. He had thought it was just the usual updates, photos, jokes, birthday reminders. But now, opening it again, he found the thread. A message from his aunt weeks ago. "Might be time to ask Nathan. He's generous when it's from the heart." His mother's reply, light-hearted but sharp, "Let's nudge him. He did say he wanted to surprise me for my birthday." A photo of her in Hawaii. He remembered how proud he'd felt arranging that. How he'd cried when she called it the most beautiful surprise. Nathan sat still, phone glowing cold in his hands. The party around him blurred. The music continued. Glasses clinked. But inside, something quietly broke. And no one noticed. Nathan stared at the half-melted candle on his slice of cake. The flame had gone out, but the smoke lingered, curling into the air like something that refused to be unseen. He looked at Ryan again. His brother, his best friend growing up, the one who used to sleep at the foot of his bed during thunderstorms. But Nathan saw now that this wasn't just a single betrayal. It was a pattern. A design. A system. He remembered the old tablet he left at his parents' house 2 years ago, the one Ryan had asked to borrow for a weekend. He hadn't thought much of it then. But now he understood that tablet had stored his passwords, his auto-logins. It was all Ryan needed. And Kyle, the cousin with big talk and small results, had once borrowed Nathan's laptop to build a CV. Nathan had even praised him afterward, saying how proud he was that Kyle was getting serious. But Kyle never emailed that CV. He had installed something else. Something that watched. Something that remembered. Nathan's fingers tightened around his fork. Even his mother's voice echoed in his head now, not the soft warmth he used to take comfort in, but that one sentence she once said, brushing his hair back with a smile. Koi nu kanjap moi nuoi, fuck duk bie doi. As if you're helping the family, it's good karma, for generations. It wasn't love. It was justification. The pieces kept falling into place until he remembered the coffee shop. Kyle's big idea. A family-owned chain with heart, he had said. Nathan had declined to invest, gently but firmly. Weeks later, the coldness came. The messages stopped. The subtle judgment began. You've changed, someone had texted. He hadn't changed. He just hadn't given in. Nathan looked up at the table. The laughter continued. The world spun on. Inside, the reservoir of trust, slowly built over years, finally emptied. Not in a burst, but in quiet drops, like the last of a rain that would never come again. Nathan's fingers moved quietly under the table, each tap a gentle but final note. He opened the banking app, the familiar blue interface lighting up in the dim light of the restaurant. No anger in his eyes, just a calm, a clarity he hadn't known he was craving. First, the car payment. Ryan's name, once listed as a co-signer, now felt foreign. Cancel. Then the streaming services. His mother had said she didn't know how to set them up, had laughed, calling herself too old for tech. He'd thought he was helping. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Then Kyle's rent, apartment under Nathan's credit, set up, just for a few months. It had been nearly 3 years. Cancel. He didn't pause. He didn't feel guilt. Only the strange lightness that comes when a weight is finally recognized for what it is. Nathan stood slowly, slipping the phone into his pocket. The chair scraped just enough to draw a glance from his father, who raised a brow. Nathan gave a small smile, just enough to reassure. Bathroom, he said softly. Won't be long. Nobody questioned it. They were already passing around another joke, another toast. His absence wouldn't be noticed, not immediately. But instead of turning toward the hallway, Nathan walked to the front door. Step by step, past the potted ferns, past the birthday sign the hostess had taped to the window, with his name in gold cursive. Outside, the evening air was cool and still. Portland's sky had turned a pale lavender, the kind that made you think of second chances or quiet exits. Nathan didn't look back. Some endings don't need confrontation. Some truths don't need to be shouted. Sometimes walking away is the loudest thing you'll ever do. The door opened with a soft creak, and Lena stood there, tall, composed, dressed in her usual clean lines and quiet authority. She didn't smile, not exactly, but there was a warmth in her eyes that said everything. I'm here. I know. Let's begin. She held a laptop tucked under one arm and a thick folder in the other, pages marked with color-coded tabs. It looked like homework, like truth written out in black and white. Nathan stepped aside without a word, letting her in. The house was dim, the only light coming from the hallway lamp he'd forgotten to turn off that morning. Lena walked through the silence like she belonged there, like she'd done this before, for people who'd learned too late how deep love could be twisted into leverage. She placed everything gently on the kitchen table, then sat, waiting. Not rushing him. Not probing. Nathan poured 2 glasses of water. It felt symbolic somehow, offering her something pure after everything that had been taken from him in shadows and smiles. He sat down. His voice was quiet but steady. Let's do this. Lena nodded, opening the folder. The next hour was numbers and signatures, closures and locks. Joint accounts frozen. Passwords reset. Fraud alerts issued. She walked him through every hidden back door his family had ever left open. Subtle logins from unknown devices, auto-forwards, ghost access to cloud files. Each step felt like reclaiming a part of himself he hadn't known was gone. Not just money. Dignity. Agency. Boundaries. Outside, the world went on as usual. But inside that small home, something sacred was happening. A man quietly sealing shut the door to his own personal hell. By the time they were done, Lena closed the laptop gently. You okay? Nathan looked out the window for a long moment. Then he nodded. I think I just started to be. The restaurant had quieted some by the time Nathan returned, this time not alone. Lena walked beside him, calm and unshaken, her presence cutting through the noise like a quiet blade. Their footsteps made no sound on the floor, but the shift in air was unmistakable. Conversations stumbled, then stopped. Nathan and Lena took their seats, not with anger, but with a stillness sharper than rage. He placed the folder on the table, slow and deliberate. Kyle tried to crack a joke, something about back from the dead, but his voice faltered when Lena met his eyes. She opened the folder. First, the forged loan agreement, Nathan's signature painstakingly compared to the real one. Highlighted. Undeniable. Then, a timeline of transfers. Money siphoned slowly but surely to accounts linked to Ryan, to Kyle, even to a trust under their father's name. The silence deepened, but it was far from peaceful. Then Lena played the audio. Nathan's father's voice came clear. He won't sue. He's too soft. This is his birthday gift, if anything. Someone at the table gasped. It might have been one of the aunts. Nathan didn't look to see. And finally, the screenshot, taken just hours before, from the family group chat. Kyle's message, "Happy birthday, wallet boy." No one laughed this time. Lena sat back, her eyes moving slowly across the stunned faces. Her voice was measured. You've taken enough. The room felt smaller now, as if it were collapsing under the weight of a truth long buried. Nathan said nothing. He didn't need to. His silence was no longer surrender. It was judgment, handed down without fury, without apology. Lena, the girl they once scoffed at for being just a financial planner, looked at each of them like someone who knew exactly what they were worth and what they were not. This wasn't revenge. This was reckoning. The tension snapped when Kyle shot to his feet, his voice rising sharp and defensive. You're blowing this up over a few bucks? He barked, eyes wide, chest puffed. It wasn't even that serious. But his words hung in the air like smoke, thin, choking, impossible to ignore. Ryan, still seated, couldn't meet Nathan's eyes. His voice came out in fragments, barely stitched together. It was always meant to be temporary. Just until things got better. We thought you wouldn't even notice. Nathan's mother began to cry softly, tears streaking down her carefully powdered face. She reached across the table with trembling hands, not for comfort, but for control. Sa con dam loi chuyen nai ra truoc mat nuoila, she whispered, switching to Vietnamese as if the language might shield them from shame. How could you do this to your own family? Nathan didn't respond. His face was unreadable, no anger, no pity, just a tired kind of quiet. Then he pulled a small projector from his coat pocket and set it on the table. A light blinked on. The video started playing on the wall behind them. Kyle's face appeared on the screen, grinning and unguarded, sitting across from a friend. His voice was clear, unmistakable. Dude, he never questions anything. Just let him think it's his idea. Nathan always wants to feel generous, it's his thing. The room froze. Even the clinking of cutlery stopped. Kyle's smirk from the video flickered across the wall like a ghost, mocking the present. No one spoke. The mask, the one made of good intentions, half-truths, and unspoken expectations, had finally fallen. And what was left beneath it was not family, but something hollow, practiced, and transactional. Nathan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Truth, once shown, doesn't ask permission to stay. The silence that followed the video was thick, like fog after a storm. Nathan reached into his coat and pulled out a plain white envelope. No flourish. No drama. Just facts. He opened it slowly, deliberately, and began to read. $91,240. That's how much I've paid on your behalf. Car loans. Streaming services. Flights. Medical bills I didn't ask about. Even that Hawaii trip you all posted about like it was a miracle. He paused and looked around the table, not accusing, just resolute. He laid the envelope on the table and slid it forward. Inside, you'll find a detailed list of payments. Attached to each is a note. If the loan or charge wasn't authorized, I've included the forged signature. Most were mine. But I never signed. He glanced at his father. There's also a transcript of the conversation between Dad and Kyle. The one where they talked about how I'd never fight back. About how I was soft. How this, he motioned to the group, was all just a birthday gift. No one met his gaze. Not even Lena. She knew this wasn't her moment. Nathan's voice dropped a note lower, not cold, just final. As of today, every payment is dead. Your subscriptions. Your rent. Your lifeline, gone. He let the words sink in. And the IRS, he added calmly, will hear about the fraudulent loan tomorrow morning. A single gasp broke through from someone, maybe an aunt, but then nothing. No more objections. No more justifications. Only the echo of a long overdue reckoning. Nathan stood up again, his movements quiet but full of purpose. He didn't wait for applause or understanding. He didn't need them to say they were sorry. He only needed them to understand one thing. The cost of betrayal is not just money. It's losing the one person who always said yes. Nathan didn't slam the door. He didn't raise his voice. He simply walked out, like someone finally stepping into air after years of holding their breath underwater. No shouting. No theatrics. Just a silence that spoke more loudly than rage ever could. That night, he didn't sleep much. He sat by the window with a mug of tea gone cold, Lena asleep on the couch beside him, her laptop still glowing faintly. The city outside buzzed with the same indifference it always had. But inside him, something had shifted, something fundamental. The next morning, as the sun filtered through the blinds, Nathan opened his social media account. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment, then began to type. Family first, they said. Until I ran out of money. Documents attached. Attached were PDFs, spreadsheets, audio clips, screenshots of messages and forged signatures. No commentary. No sensationalism. Just truth laid bare. Within hours, the post went viral. Strangers from all walks of life flooded the comments with shock, empathy, and stories of their own. The thread became a mirror, a place where people recognized their own scars. Kyle's employer responded swiftly. He was terminated for breach of ethics, his name already trending for all the wrong reasons. Ryan's workplace launched an internal audit. By afternoon, a formal investigation was underway. Nathan's father, once a respected member of the local banking board, received a summons regarding the forged loan application. Nathan didn't gloat. He didn't repost headlines or clap back at critics. He simply turned off notifications, closed the laptop, and walked into the quiet of his home. For the first time in years, it was actually his. No hidden debts. No invisible hands in his pockets. Just space. Stillness. And a future he could finally start living for himself. The morning light came soft through the curtains, golden and quiet. Nathan sat by the window again, the same one where he had once watched his world unravel. But this time, there was no tea gone cold, no unread messages piling up, no sense of panic sitting just beneath his skin. Just peace, a new kind, unfamiliar but welcome. That day, his mother made a post on her own social media. Family is meant for forgiveness, not destruction. It was a photo of their living room years ago, everyone laughing, Nathan in the corner, smiling but distracted even then. She didn't name him, but the implication was clear. Her caption was a subtle plea. Or perhaps a wound dressed up as wisdom. The internet didn't take it lightly. The backlash came quick, fierce, unrelenting. People wrote, "Forgiveness doesn't erase theft. You broke him, then guilt him into silence? He's not your bank. He's your son." Nathan didn't write a new post. No essays. No retaliation. He scrolled, paused for a moment, and finally left a single comment beneath hers. Forgiveness isn't free. Neither is betrayal. It was pinned and he never touched it again. Days passed. Then weeks. The noise faded. The world moved on as it always does. But Nathan didn't return to the old life. He no longer felt responsible for holding everyone else together. He stopped answering group chats labeled family. He changed his number, moved to a quieter part of town. He learned how to sit alone in silence, and not mistake it for loneliness. For the first time in his adult life, Nathan lived without debt. Not just money, but emotional debt. The weight of being needed. And that, quietly, was freedom. Not the end. Just the start. If you've ever felt used by the people closest to you, know that you're not alone. Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and help someone else feel seen today.